감당할 수 있겠니?
At least 50 casualties are reported across the country from heavy rainfall. Our team takes a look at how severe the damage is in the central Chungcheongbuk-do province, where recovery efforts are underway. Seoul and Washington agree upon an upgraded joint extended deterrence as they initiated their bilateral nuclear consultative group talks today in Seoul. President Yoon says there should be stronger extended deterrence so that North Korea dares not think of using nuclear weapons. The South Korean government lodges an appeal against a recent ruling by an international arbitration court that ordered it to pay millions of dollars in damages to a U.S. hedge fund over the 2015 Samsung merger. Citing Korea-U.S. free trade agreement, the Justice Ministry says it's not in their purview to deliver the order. It's July 18th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start this evening with heavy rain fallout here in South Korea. The number of people either dead or missing now stands at 50. Not much rain is expected for the next couple of days, but another downpour is forecast for the weekend. Our Choi Min-jung has the latest.
At least 41 people have been killed and 9 are missing following the heavy downpours in South Korea. And as of 11 a.m. Tuesday, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters data shows that 35 more have been injured, with over 12,000 having had to evacuate their homes. But the official death toll is yet to be updated, as 3 more bodies presumed to be those of people reported missing were found in Yecheon-gun County, Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. A man in his 60s who went missing after a landslide was found dead on Tuesday afternoon. The body of a woman in her 70s was also found under a pile of trees, and another woman in her 60s who went missing after being swept by rain in a car was also found dead on the same day. Yecheon-gun County has been one of the regions hit hard by heavy rain and landslides. For a bit of respite, the rain is expected to stop from Wednesday through Friday. However, the country is expecting to see another downpour over the weekend. People in the capital region, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, and Gangwon-do Province should keep watch as rain is forecast to pound the areas. Meanwhile, search and rescue efforts at the site of the flooded underpass in Osong in Cheongju City, Chungcheongbuk-do Province, came to an end on Monday night. The Office for Government Policy Coordination has started an investigation to determine the cause of the tragic incident that killed 14 people. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Korea's Chungcheongbuk-do province is one of the hardest hit areas. Our Choi Soo-hyung takes a closer look on the rain damage and recovery works there.
Heavy rain in Chungcheongbuk-do province has meant that the central part of the country is one of the most affected, alongside Chungcheongnam-do and Gyeongsangnam-do provinces. Here in Gyeongsangbuk County in Chungcheongbuk-do province, a total of over 400 millimeters rain has dropped since July 13. Flooding has caused serious damage to the fields and crops. This massive flooding was caused by the Gyeongsangbuk Dam, overflowing for the first time in 43 years, leading to the evacuation of around 6,000 residents. According to officials, approximately 600 residential and commercial facilities collapsed, and the agricultural land damage area is estimated to be around 27 square kilometers, 8 times larger than Central Park in New York. People who have been affected don't know what to do next.
This place used to be our workplace, but everything is gone. Nothing is left. The water filled that greenhouse all the way to the end. I only just got myself out at 4 a.m. I'm relieved to just be alive.
Helpers are reaching out from all over the country, and volunteers and nearby military personnel are being mobilized to carry out emergency disaster recovery.
A couple of days ago, I saw a news report about the horrible damage due to heavy rainfall in Chungcheongbuk-do province, which made me deeply sad. So I've decided to do volunteer work. As soon as I arrived, I noticed that everything, even the containers, is being washed away. In any case, such incidents should never happen again.
Although the water that flooded the fields has receded, the continuous rainfall is making the recovery efforts challenging. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, heavy rainfall of 100 to over 150 millimeters per hour is expected in the Chungcheongbuk-do region until Wednesday. Officials consider Thursday and Friday as the optimal time for recovery efforts. Chungcheong, Arirang News, Kwesan.
President Yoon says he'll stop the misuse of government subsidies, and instead those will be used to help recovery efforts in flooded areas. The authorities are speeding up to designate special disaster zones. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol said Tuesday that he will put a stop to the misuse of government subsidies and use those funds to help with recovery efforts from the recent flooding, emphasizing disaster relief is a priority for taxpayers' money. Speaking at a cabinet meeting, the president said all available resources will be utilized for a speedy recovery, including through the designation of special disaster zones.
가능한 빠른 시일 내에 피해 지역을 특별 재난 지역으로 선포하고 복구 인력, 재난 관련 재원, 예비비 등 정부의 가용 자원을 모두 동원하겠습니다.
Local media outlets have been reporting that the official designations of the heavily damaged regions as special disaster zones are being expedited and could be announced as early as Wednesday. According to the top office's spokesperson, the president said, quote, "These are the emergency situations that the government tightened its monetary policies for, so don't hold back and make it feel as if the government is overdoing it." The president also called for the nation's disaster management program to be completely overhauled as extreme weather conditions have become the norm. And the current system isn't sufficient enough to prevent and manage potential disasters.
천재지변이니 어쩔 수 없다. 이런 인식은 버려야 됩니다. 평소에도 체계적으로 작동할 수 있는 디지털 모니터링 시스템을 갖춰야 됩니다. 중앙정부와 지방정부가 범정부 차원에서 협업하고 전문가들이 참여해야 됩니다.
Adding that the monsoon season is yet to be over with more heavy rain expected in the next few days, he called on relevant agencies and first responders to continue to be on their toes. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
As the South Korean government rushes to declare monsoon-affected regions as special disaster zones, our Kim Jong-sil explains what the declaration means and what changes it brings.
An area can be declared a special disaster zone by the president when there has been a serious natural or social disaster in South Korea, and the declaration becomes effective immediately.
Yeah, a disaster declaration can quickly authorize the support programs such as providing short-term relief and recovery of the affected area. The state or local governments can provide special administrative, fiscal, financial, and medical support necessary for the emergency responses.
A director general at the Safety Ministry who takes charge following the declaration told Arirang News what support is given to the affected regions.
In the case of a general disaster, 70% of the recovery costs are paid for out of the national budget, depending on the financial capability of the local government. If an area is declared a special disaster zone, up to 80% of the cost will be funded by the central government.
There's additional support for residents as well.
In addition to state support for local governments, there are various financial programs for individuals in the affected region, including relief on, for example, vehicular tax and medical insurance. Residents will also be given discounts on utility fees for gas and electricity.
The director added that in general disasters, people who have lost their homes are provided with up to $28,000 from the state. In the case of death, around $15,000 is given to the bereaved family. But if a region is declared a special disaster zone, an additional $15,000 is given to the bereaved family and $7,000 more to those who lost their homes. The Yoon administration previously declared the Itaewon area a special disaster zone following the crowd crush disaster there last Halloween that saw 159 people killed. Pohang and Gyeongju cities in Gyeongsangbuk-do province were declared a special disaster zone last September after Typhoon Himnanor hit them, killing at least 11 people. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington ramp up their commitment to extended deterrence against North Korea, kicking off their first session of the nuclear consultative group here in Seoul. In line with that, an American nuclear submarine is making port in Busan for the first time in more than 40 years. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
South Korea and the United States have launched a bilateral platform to take a unified nuclear response to North Korean threats, deemed an unprecedented step for Washington since the days of the Cold War. On Tuesday, Seoul's Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho and his US counterpart Kurt Campbell co-chaired the inaugural meeting of the Nuclear Consultative Group in Seoul.
We discussed ways to jointly respond to North Korea's nuclear threats. We also decided to materialize nuclear and strategic planning and provide mechanisms and the architecture that can expand information sharing on nuclear and conventional forces.
According to Kim, the first meeting focused on creating a secure dialogue channel and identified 5 main areas for continual discussion, including the Allies' joint planning and nuclear posture and how to operate Washington's nuclear assets with Seoul's non-nuclear assets together, deploying US strategic assets to the south, along with crisis management and training nuclear experts in South Korea. The NCG was formed as part of Presidents Yoon and Biden's Washington Declaration in April, after North Korea launched an unprecedented number of missile tests last year, and experts warned that a 7th nuclear test could be imminent. With recent public opinion surveys finding over 70% feel the need for South Korea to develop its own nuclear weapons, Seoul and Washington in April agreed to bolster their joint capabilities and confidence in executing the US extended deterrence policy of defending allies who fall under conventional or nuclear attack.
We have not done anything like this since early periods in the Cold War, but it is a testament to several things. One, we understand the challenges here and how important it is to send a signal of commitment and confidence. Second, it is the nature of the strength of our alliance and partnership with South Korea.
Both Kim and Campbell stressed that any nuclear attack by the North against the South will be met with a swift, overwhelming and decisive response, resulting in the end of the Kim Jong-un regime. Also, as security cooperation efforts with Japan continue, Campbell did not rule out the expansion of the NCG to other areas or countries, though emphasizing that the laser-sharp focus right now would be bilateral.
On that note, Deputy Advisor Kim said that a trilateral summit with Japan is being arranged for August in Washington, D.C., with the agenda to cover regional and economic security, after which the NCG will convene a working-level meeting. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Korean government has filed an appeal against a recent international court's ruling in the investor state dispute that ordered it to pay millions of dollars in damages to U.S. hedge fund Elliott. Citing Korea-U.S. free trade agreement, the Justice Ministry says it's not in their purview to deliver the order. Or Lee Dae-yeon has more.
The Justice Ministry has filed an appeal against an international tribunal's ruling ordering the government to pay $108.5 million in damages to Elliott Investment Management. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in the Netherlands delivered its judgment last month in the investor-state dispute settlement suit that the New York-based activist fund filed in 2018. Elliott had demanded $770 million from the South Korean government, including delayed interest payments and legal fees. However, Seoul was ordered to pay $108.5 million. This suit stems from the 2015 merger of two Samsung Group affiliates, Samsung C&T Corporation and Taylor Industries, with the state-run National Pension Service Fund approving of the deal. Elliott had held a 7.1% stake in Samsung C&T and objected to the merger, saying it devalued its share valuation. It filed the investor-state dispute settlement case, claiming that the Park Geun-hye administration had pressured the pension fund to support the deal. The Justice Ministry said on Tuesday that it believed the ruling was contrary to the free trade agreement signed between South Korea and the United States.
We believe that the arbitration tribunal misinterpreted the jurisdiction requirement under the South Korea-US FTA, and this is a legitimate reason for cancellation under British arbitration law.
The ministry also said that the PCA's recognition of the National Pension Service as a national institution in practice was unfair, adding that the court wrongly accused the government of controlling its voting rights. It also brought up the ruling that government action was related to Elliott's investment in Samsung C&T, saying that this was also a wrong accusation. The ministry added that should the government not file an appeal against a ruling, this could expand into a bigger problem such as further investor-state dispute cases possibly filed against other Korean public institutions or public funds. It noted the government will do its best to have the judgment amended and prevent any loss of taxpayers' money. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
More and more young people in South Korea are choosing to pursue higher education over employment. Statistics Korea on Tuesday said over 70,000 fewer people prepare for job examinations this year, such as the public service exam done last year. This is the first time in 4 years that the figure has fallen for 2 years in a row. A spokesperson from the agency attributed this to more young people deciding to pursue higher education as a result of having had their studies interrupted during COVID-19. Data also showed that roughly 2 out of every 3 young people in employment have quit their first jobs, with the majority choosing to quit as a result of unsatisfactory wages or working hours. Concerns grow over global supplies of food as Russia says it'll end the deal that allows Ukraine to export its grain to the other parts of the world through the Black Sea. Lee Seung-jo explains.
Despite weeks of negotiations, the deal that was brokered by Turkey and the UN almost a year ago to allow more than 30 million tons of Ukrainian grain access to global markets officially expired on Monday. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres shared his disappointment at Russia's decision to step away from the deal.
I deeply regret the decision by the Russian Federation to terminate the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative, including the withdrawal of Russian security guarantees for navigation in the northwestern part of the Black Sea. This initiative has ensured the safe passage of over 32 million metric tons of food commodities from Ukrainian ports.
Despite Russia's decision not to renew the grains deal, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, in a video message on Monday, stressed that the deal was in agreement with Turkey and the UN, adding his belief that the agreement remains in effect and hinting that Ukraine may continue its exports despite the deal expiring.
The Black Sea Grain Initiative can and should continue to operate. If without Russia, then without Russia. The agreement on grain exports is an agreement with Turkey and the UN, and it remains in effect.
The expiration of the deal may deal a major blow to both Ukraine and countries that rely heavily on Ukraine's grains. Ukraine is one of the world's largest grain exporters. As of 2021, before the Russian invasion, it was the 3rd largest exporter of barley, 4th largest corn exporter, and 5th largest wheat exporter worldwide, with 95% of that grain moving through Black Sea ports. Speaking at the White House on the same day, National Security Council Coordinator John Kirby called Russia's decision an act of aggression that will harm people all over the world. Before the deal was signed last year, global wheat and corn prices soared 56.5% and 15.7% on year respectively, heightening food shortages in low-income countries. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The gravity of the climate crisis is felt across the world. Some parts of the globe are grappling with abnormal rainfall, while others are experiencing blistering heat that are becoming all too frequent. Yoon has more.
More countries around the world are experiencing climate events caused by extreme weather conditions. South Korea reaches a 10th day of heavy downpours being called water bombs, which have caused flash floods. Such conditions have caused devastating landslides, flooding of underground infrastructure, and overflowing rivers as the death toll continues to rise across the country. In neighboring Japan, just over this past weekend, the country saw some 414.5 millimeters of rain, an amount over 2 days that was greater than over the entire month of July in previous years. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, June was the hottest June globally in the 174 years of records kept by the agency. The United States was scorched by record heat in the west and south, while the northeast was lashed by rain, causing floods, and the Midwest was choked by wildfire smoke. California's Death Valley, that's been dubbed the hottest place on Earth, reached 54 degrees Celsius on Sunday. In coping with such extreme heat and in preventing climate-related deaths, countries in the Middle East like the United Arab Emirates have imposed restrictions on working outdoors between 12:30 p.m. and 3 p.m. Health ministries across Europe have issued red alerts, and with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius in Greece, access has been closed to several tourist destinations like the Acropolis Monument. As El Niño returns for the first time in 4 years, which typically increases global temperatures in the year after it develops, the World Meteorological Organization has said there is a 98% likelihood that at least one of the next 5 years, and the 5-year period overall, will be the warmest on record. 이은진, Arirang News.
While most of the rain has eased off for the capital region, heavy rain will continue to pound parts of the south. If you take a look at the satellite imagery, rain clouds are currently clustered across the south of the country. The monsoonal rain front is forecast to move out of the peninsula by tomorrow afternoon. As for the amount of rainfall, mountainous regions of Jeju Island will see up to 350 millimeters. For Jeollado and Gyeongsang-do provinces, severe downpours of up to 250 millimeters are in the forecast. There are still recovery measures going on for the damage caused by previous downpours. Please continue to monitor the potential for further flooding and landslides. For the capital region, rain will subside until Thursday. On Friday, another monsoonal rain front will enter the country, causing rain for Jeju Island. Showers will spread nationwide for the weekend. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gyeongju will be starting off at 23 degrees Celsius. For central regions, sweltering conditions are back in the forecast. Highs in Seoul will get up to 32. Daejeon and Gwangju 31. Busan will be reaching 28 degrees. Until Friday, conditions will stay hot for Seoul with highs of 33 degrees. That's all for now, and to the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
Welcome. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라 감당할 수 있겠니?
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.
먹어도 끝이 없는 나라 감당할 수 있겠니?
Busan, Korea is already reaching the entire world. Like ocean waves that travel far and wide. It's Busan, the perfect World Expo city. Transforming our world, navigating toward a better future. World Expo 2030, Busan, Korea.
Welcome. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라 감당할 수 있겠니?
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.
먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hello everyone, it's Tuesday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Next year's hourly minimum wage is expected to be set as early as Tuesday night, that is today, and eyes are on whether it will break the 10,000 Korean won mark for the first time. Currently, this year's minimum wage is 9,620 Korean won, and both the labor and business sides have gone through rounds of negotiations to settle the wide gap between their own initial proposals. What will the final decision be, and what impact would having a minimum wage of over 10,000 Korean won have on both workers and business owners? To discuss this, we invite Professor Oh Jun-seok, Dean of Sungmyeong Business School. Professor Oh, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. And we also have Professor Choi Hyun-sun from Youngji University. Professor Choi, thank you for your time.
Good to see you again.
All right, first question to our Professor Choi. Now, South Korea's Minimum Wage Council is trying to reach an agreement on the minimum wage for next year. Now, first of all, who sits on this council and how does the minimum wage get decided?
Minimum Wage Act defined this organization and the process. Especially the commission has 30 members, but it represents business, employee, and then the public interest. So the employee commissioner, there are nine employee commissioner, and there are 9 employer commissioners, and the 9 public interest commissioner, and there are 3 members, special members, which who comes from the ministry, like a Ministry of the Employment and Labor or Ministry of Strategy and Finance, high-ranking officer. So 30 members, they decide about the minimum wage for the next year. It started from according to the law, it started from the May 31 for every year. And then they have normally deliberation period is like 90 days, but it is already passed. But normally it passed. So anyway, it should be decided very soon, and then the government announced by the August 5th.
Right, I see. So that's how the hourly minimum wage is decided every year. Now, Professor Oh, how much has the minimum wage actually increased in recent years? And I heard that minimum wage hikes have been significant compared to other countries. Is this really so?
Yes, the situation was much to a steep increase in the minimum wage under the former government. The wage rose during the 5 years, 7.36% on average per annum, which pledged politically to raise the minimum hourly wage to 10,000 Korean won. 5-year economic growth during the period averaged 2.28%, the slowest for any government. It seems like a situation pushing a car forward only by regulation accelerator, not knowing the situation. Side brake is tightly jammed. Because of jammed brake in our economy, small business and merchants have been hit hardest. Quality jobs were crowded out. Part-time work also has become short. Without coordination with economic growth, political pledge is only an illusion. Once again, a minimum wage hike should have been considered and controlled by durability and durability of economic growth. It's worth noting that minimum wage is adjusted annually in many countries depending on the dynamics of the economic situation. Comparative analysis is not that easy due to different wage structures like tipped workers or non-tipped workers, and the tax system, other things should be considered. But the minimum wage for non-tipped workers in the United States remains $7.25 per hour, the 17th highest in the world, but barely half that of Australia, $14.54 US dollars, the global leader. Australia, New Zealand, and Luxembourg are ranked the highest group with a range over $13 to $14 per hour. Korea is with a ranking over 13, included in the mid-range group of such countries as Belgium, Germany, and Canada, more or less than $10 per hour. Countries with lower level of minimum wages such as Japan, $7.5, Spain, $7.3, and the United States, $7.25. Now back to the question. Has been too much? Not that much. Has been too fast? Yes, too fast to bear. The Yoon administration should make amend. The minimum wage raise without any reasonable ground is hurting both employers and employee altogether. It's time to remand.
All right, I see your point. Now, Professor Chen, the legal deadline, as you have earlier said, for agreement has already passed on June 29th. And if an agreement is reached today, the minimum wage discussions will have gone on for like 109 days, which is the longest since 2016. Why was it especially tricky to reach an agreement this year?
This how the process would be predicted already, because the Yoon administration has a very strong anti-labor union policy, which is employee representatives. They have a more stronger voice. At the same time, the maybe employer side also, they brought differentiated minimum by industry, which means maybe many labor and workers not agree. So this means is that they have very conflictual agenda, so it made the delay much. In 2016, there are 108 days. Now is 109 days. So yeah, it's a very not so big gap, but just 1 day difference. Yeah.
All right, I see. So long negotiations was widely expected already. Now, Professor Oh, all eyes are on whether the minimum wage for next year will be increased to 10,000 Korean won, going over a 3.95% increase. And the Federation of Korean Industries says that this will lead to many job losses, up to 69,000. What's your view on this?
Supporters of minimum wage argue that it increases living standards for workers, reduce poverty, and amend the income inequality, stimulate the economy by purchasing power increase, and boost employee morale. On the other hand, opponents of minimum wage claim that the higher labor costs will increase inflation and force businesses to raise prices to make ends meet, and to lay off workers that they can no longer afford to pay. According to a recent research, as you mentioned, by Professor Chen Nam-seok at Jeonbuk National University, I know him personally, and he's an excellent economist before joining the faculty. If the minimum wage climbs above the 10,000 won threshold, up to 18,000 people between 15 to 29 years of age will lose their jobs. The increased minimum wage could see the service and construction sectors lay off of a considerable number of workers. Up to 16,000 jobs in the service sector and 26,000 jobs in construction sector will be cut. As econ professionals, I believe market mechanism much more than that of politics. I cannot believe populism or propaganda. Market frictions like transaction costs, regulation, and taxes should be lowered as possible because they are deadweight losses in the market. In this respect, regulatory innovation would be minimized. Let's see the numbers. Korea's minimum wage grew 41.6% from 2018 till last year, but labor productivity has been increased by only 0.2%. Unless labor productivity increased, it might never be acceptable nor sustainable to spike a minimum wage with this speed. It could be composed of different numbers when they are divided and segmented by business sectors or by industry or by market. It might be different numbers. Ever since the law was enacted in 1988, the differentiating the minimum wage has never been discussed. I think now is the time to be discussed.
Right, I see. Considering what our professors told us up until now, it does seem like a difficult decision, given that, you know, workers do need more money to live due to the high cost of living, while raising minimum wage too much could put pressure on small business owners and possibly lead them to lay off staff. So, Professor Che, what do you believe should be the utmost consideration when deciding on the minimum wage?
I agree the most maybe opinion of the Professor Oh about the we need a balance between the maybe our economy and the same time the maybe cost of the living cost of the workers. But however, if we think about what's the main purpose of the Minimum Wage Act, I think that we must more favor on the actual living cost of the workers. This is the most important. Why we made this law, and this legislation is our maybe consensus about we need keep the minimum wage somehow. Then we satisfy their maybe living cost. Especially under this economic situation, inflation and things. Yeah.
Right, I see. We'll have to see what decision Council will eventually make tonight. Now, Professor Oh, meanwhile, another related topic that was up for discussion was a decision on a differentiated approach to minimum wage depending on the sector. Now, before we talk about Council's decision not to pursue this idea, what was the reason behind this request from small business owners, Professor Oh?
Before talking my comment, that I agree with Professor Che because market failure could be amended in terms of income redistribution. And in this sense, that the existence of this kind of minimum wage system take a great role of balancing in an economy. An issue was whether the minimum wage should be set lower for small-sized industry that struggle to pay wages, such as convenience stores and food services. The business side, mostly small business owners, in the sense of affordability, have advocated for the differentiated minimum system due to different productivity, different affordability, and durability of their businesses, while the labor side has balked, saying it defeats the purpose of the minimum wage, equal benefit for all labor, which I could find no reason, as price elasticity in a segmented labor market should be different, and the effect of a minimum wage increase should be different as well. In this respect, I agree on the application of differentiated minimum wage system if it cannot be avoidable. However, I could find several cases on differentiated minimum wage, not by industry, but by age in many countries. For example, most of the European Union countries, minimum wages are differentiated according to ages. Chile has 2 age brackets, and now it's planning to add more. Considering empirical studies in favor of differentiating minimum wage is that it can increase corporate sector employment for young workers and improve the income distribution. It is worthwhile to relax the differentiated minimum wage system solely for young people, which may reduce youth unemployment, although it might be detrimental for the less skilled workers.
Right, I see. It is really interesting to hear that the minimum wage could be different depending on the age. Now, Professor Che, the council for now in South Korea has decided not to implement differentiated minimum wage by industry for the next year. But why is this so? And is there a chance this could be discussed yet again in the near future?
In the ideal way, maybe it is a selected way of the minimum wage is very good, but this is a very controversial issue, like a welfare, comprehensive general welfare versus the selected welfare. But we know in the real world, it is very hard to decide what is the difference and how much difference. So it took a longer time to the process about this consensus building, which means right now the 9 days deliberation, and then there are some analysis of the data. It is not enough for the maybe the differentiated minimum wage by industry. So I suggest we should talk a lot. We should maybe continue this good discussion, but based on the real evidence, which means is not only like 90 days, not only this minimum wage council, we need a real brilliant people to get together and make it happen. Is we need many study and we need to make a consensus building process.
All of these decisions seem to be very much of a difficult one to make, apparently, given what our experts talked to me. But now shifting gears a little bit to unemployment benefits, Professor Che. Recently, the ruling PPP and the government decided to overhaul unemployment benefits, saying recent minimum wage hikes have distorted the system. Now, first of all, how are these unemployment benefits decided and what are the requirements?
I think that I was very surprised about this issue when the main part, the ruling party invited the civil servant of the Ministry of the Employment and Labor, and she actually ridiculed minimum allowances recipients. So I think that this is not fair. I mean, this is I never see like a civil servant ridicule this way. They buy the Chanel, the sunglasses, something like that. It is like a black comedy. So I don't think this is a proper way to actually initiate this issue to the people, and the people should make a consensus. Without that, maybe even the ruling party and the president cannot change this minimum allowance. I think so.
I cannot agree more that it was a bad way to, initiate this discussion over this unemployment benefits. Now, Professor Oh, let's delve deeper into the reasons behind why PPP and the government wanted to overhaul the system. Authorities pointed out that the current system removes the incentives for people to find jobs, and some even repeatedly quit or get rehired in order to receive benefits. Is this side effects that we are really seeing?
Yes, there are issues. There are potential benefits for minimum wage policy in terms of higher earnings for low-paid workers, reduced public benefits, and increased perceived fairness should be juxtaposed against the potential cost, something like a reduced job searching incentives. As you mentioned, there are good evidences that the labor market is not always characterized by a simple, perfectly competitive supply and demand framework, which is support for the minimum wage system itself. But in the United States, let's take an example. Large body of high-quality research has investigated the overall research about the impact of minimum wages. Across the U.S. states, the best evidence suggests that the job searching motivation or employment effects are very small, up to around 50-90% of the median wage. Not all studies suggest a small improvement effects, however, but the weight of the evidence suggests that the improvement effects are modest. In the United Kingdom also, there is a little effect on the job searching incentives, but found some evidence that the national minimum wage has led to a small reduction in job searching hours. Small improvement effects might be interpreted. Firms could adjust to higher minimum wages in other ways. However, there is a clear evidence for minimum wages being an important margin of adjustment. Overall, existing research, therefore, point to a muted effect of minimum wages on job searching and employment, while suggesting that minimum wages significantly increase the earnings of low-paid workers.
Right, I see. Now, I'd like to ask this question to both of our experts. So the government and the ruling PPP will eventually decide to either lower unemployment allowances or scrap the benefits altogether. Now, first, Professor Oh, in what direction do you believe it should go?
Considering the proposal of minimum wage system in Korea, minimum wage system should have functioned as a social safety net for narrowing down the income inequality in a society, not sacrificing the labor market efficiency. In this respect, now is the time again differentiated minimum wage system application rather than this a single minimum wage system. Even though there are a lot of things to do and a lot of information needed, as Professor Che commented, but it should be applied as a social choice. I want to remind you of the good evidence and cases, not by industry, but by age differentiation, should be segmented in many countries.
Right, so though it could be hard, the work needs to be done. How about Professor Che? What's your opinion on this?
I agree with Professor Oh's mostly, but I think maybe this now the minimum and the maybe unemployment allowance stays right now same way, because there are no evidence against it right now, because this is I think so this is like a politicized of the civil servants and they talk a lot, but it's not the evidence at all. So I think we stay this system, and then the consensus building and the people's maybe talk, maybe we need. This is really the maybe ruling party name is the People's Power Party, right? So they must believe in the people.
Right, I see. I cannot agree more that they need to believe in people. All right, I want to ask many more questions to our experts, but unfortunately this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Professor Che and Professor Oh, for your insights. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
I'm live! 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지. 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.